Hello there, you're listening to the Box Office Show. I'm Ryan Hill.
And I'm Dylan Johnson. Today we're going to be talking about the box office numbers from last weekend and our box office predictions for this upcoming weekend.
We'll also be talking about the erotic sports drama Challengers from producer, stars Zendaya, and director Luca Guadagnino.
Let's start with some news. We had the Mufasa The Lion King trailer come out, which I don't like the title change from Mufasa to Mufasa The Lion King. Let's start with that. Not a fan of that. Because he's not the Lion King. Simba is the Lion King. Yes, Mufasa is the Lion King, but Simba is the Lion King. Because he was in a movie called The Lion King, I don't think we should prequel that with Mufasa The Lion King. I don't like it.
Trailer. I mean, technically, he is a king who is a lion.
You're correct, but he's not the Lion King. He's the Lion King, but he's not the Lion King. You know what I'm saying?
Well, at that time, he was the Lion King.
No. The only one. But to us, the audience, he's not the Lion King. He's just the Lion King. He's a Lion King.
This was always the title, by the way.
No, it was Mufasa. It was just Mufasa.
No, it's been Mufasa the Lion King for a while.
Well, that's dumb.
Well, it's just to make sure you know who it is.
Okay.
I'm talking about Mufasa the tiger. I'm talking about Mufasa the prince. There's only one Mufasa.
Yeah, but that trailer was kind of mid as fuck. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't disagree.
All right.
I will say the CGI, like that whole photorealistic animation stuff that they were going for, didn't look all that photorealistic.
Hasn't gotten better.
I'm not sure what has happened there. So
they're trying to make it more cartoony, so it's not as uncanny valley as the first one, maybe.
Well, if they went that route, then they should have leaned even further into it. I'm sure you remember some of those like redrawings or pictures that people had done where it was much more cartoony, but still in sort of the realistic vein.
They could have just made it animated like the original. They could have just made it 2D animated like the original.
That's very true. And
bold
I wish they
thinking.
Because it doesn't look the best. I did do some digging though, and the original Lion King remake, live action remake trailer came out in July.
Mm-hmm.
This one came out at the tail end of April. So it was released a few months before that original one had its teaser trailer released. So they could still be hard at work, making sure that all the CGI, all the photorealistic animation looks the best it can be when it hits theaters in December. But they definitely, I think, should have waited to put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
Because this was not the best splash they could have made, giving us our first look at Mufasa.
Yeah, no, pretty bad.
But
oh well. In other news, Cobra Kai has announced that its final season will be split into 3 parts, with the first part coming out in July, the second in November, and the third at a to-be-determined date in 2025. They're going the Attack on Titan route. What are your thoughts, Brian? Are you hopeful that it's just these 3 parts and then they won't split it up again and again and again like Attack on Titan? Or are you upset that they're splitting it like this? Do you wish that they just released it all at once?
I'm getting horrible flashbacks to the many, many final seasons and final parts.
Cobra Kai, the final season, part 2, the final chapters, part 2.
The final kicks, yeah. One last match, one last round. Yeah, I hate it. Just give it all in one go. Like, why are you doing this? It's
they get
so
2
annoying.
Cliffhangers out of it. How crazy is that? It's normal. I've seen finales that have like 2. They split the season into 2. Like Breaking Bad did that. Who else did that? I think How I Met Your Mother did that. But that came out weekly, as did Breaking Bad. But they just had like gaps in the final season, which is pretty much just 2 seasons. But they kind of just split it up like that. So it's not crazy territory, but to split it 3 times and to have it be 3 different dates where they drop is kind of weird. You could just do 2, or you could just drop it all at once. But maybe they just didn't want to lose momentum because they knew they weren't going to be done with it until 2025. So they were like, we can get some of it out now, but we're going to need time for the rest of it.
I guess so, but yeah, at that point, it's just
when is the
they want to milk it out. That's what they want to do. That comes out. Well, it originally was supposed to be the end of this year,
Mm,
but
you got pushed.
that is not happening. So it's definitely next year. I think December is. They probably push it back one full year, or maybe they try to make it a summer
They could
release
roll it.
date.
They could
But
roll it straight from Cobra Kai into that.
if it has some connection to
I don't
Cobra
think there will
Kai,
be
we
any
still don't
connection
have
other
full
than Ralph
confirmation,
Macchio. I think Ralph Macchio is the only thing that's going to connect the two.
which is silly
It
because now
is.
we've seen this man for 6 seasons,
Yeah, a full
and
life
we're
with
not
the
going to reference
characters.
any, like, is his wife going to be in that? Or are we just not going to see that? Or is she going to get like fridged in the first part of that film? Are we going to undo all the growth he's done with like Miyagi and his teachings and trying to fill that void and all this and that?
I don't care about
It would
any of
be
the
a
other
big
characters
missed
in Cobra
opportunity.
Kai. I just want Johnny to come.
I like a lot of the characters in
I don't
Cobra
care
Kai,
about
so I'd like
any of them.
them to
I
be
just think it's
referenced. You
unfair if
like
Johnny isn't in it.
Hawk.
I do. I do. You're right. But if they don't get a reference in the Karate Kid movie that is not quite related to Cobra Kai, I won't be upset. I will be upset if Johnny doesn't get thrown in there because
I don't need name
he.
drops of these people. I just need like us to acknowledge that this man was in a rival dojo, like clashing between various different dojos for the past 5 years of his life.
But I want Johnny to be
So
in the movie. Like I want Johnny to be in that Karate Kid movie. He's the reason that Cobra Kai is all together. You know, him and Ralph Macchio brought it back, and they deserve to go
agreed.
on together. William
I also
Zabka
agree. That'd be a
deserves this.
great next chapter. Yeah. So we'll see how that ends up manifesting itself. I don't know what the connections will be, but I'm invested in Cobra Kai at the moment,
I
and I
still don't
am
know why
upset
Cobra Kai is
at the
so good.
three-parter.
I still can't explain why it's good. It's
It's
very
delightful,
simple.
man.
It's very straightforward. They have very, very simple, very obvious character arcs. And it's just kids
Hmm.
fighting each other. And it's
It is.
wildly entertaining.
It's. I mean, it's wrestling pretty much. They do the
You're
same
right. You're
exact
right.
heel turns and
Yeah.
babyface turns, all that. They have their little factions, and they always change it up. It's wrestling, but with karate. So
You're absolutely
it's fun.
correct.
It's so much fun. It's cheesy.
They
They
got the
know it's cheesy.
storylines
They
going
lean
on.
into it. So yeah, I think it's great. I'll definitely be watching in these three parts, but I wish they would have just given it all in one go. But it's been a long enough wait. I can't. It was what, 2023. The beginning of it was when we had season 5. Is
That
that
sounds about
right?
right. Yeah. Around there.
And it's a long time.
A
So
year ago.
we'll finally get something. I'm glad we're getting some content this summer, but yeah,
Yeah.
annoying that we have to wait so many months to get the full chapter,
Indeed. Let's do
full
our
story to be
box
finished.
office breakdown for April 26th to the 28th. Coming in first place was Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, which we're going to be talking about today. It raked in $15 million.
Unsung Hero in second place with 7.7 million.
What is that?
I don't know. I saw it on
Oh.
the Regal app earlier. I was looking at that. It
It's just
seems
odd
like
that something I've
some
never heard of could come in
uplifting
second.
family movie, possibly a faith-based movie. That happens all the time. Um, but yeah,
Yep, it's a faith-based movie. You're right.
there you go.
Contemporary Christian music family. Yep. I get it. Unsung. I get it. After that was Godzilla X Kong with 7.2 million. It beat Godzilla at the box office. I mean, Godzilla's been out for a while, sure, but it still beat Godzilla.
Civil War with 6.8 million came in fourth place. It has now crossed 50 million domestic.
Good for A24. Abigail made 5.2 million.
Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare with 3.8 million.
Kung Fu Panda 4 with 3.5 million.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire with 3.2 million.
Dune Part 2 with 2 million, crossing the $700 million mark worldwide. That is epic. It was my fourth pick on the roster, and it just crossed 700 million. That is big numbers.
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest upset in the world if Dune Part 2 ultimately is what seals it for you instead of me, like last year when it should have been on my roster. But
That's my heel turn.
Honestly, I mean, well, that'll trigger my heel turn, is me going berserk and crazy. Boy Kills World, 1.6 million, coming in 10th place in its debut. So not the best for a that action flick. But hey, it made it on the list. It didn't get beaten out by the Alien re-release, the anniversary that came out, and it was like at 1.5 million. So
Oof.
thankfully, this one didn't get embarrassed by
Alien.
losing on the top 10 total. But
Yeah.
as for predictions for this upcoming weekend, May 5th or May 3rd to the May 5th, the Fall Guy, Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt leading the movie that kicks off the summer. This is instead of Marvel or any Disney film, The Fall
The
Guy
beginning
is going to be
blockbuster.
launching the season. Yeah. So what do you think it's going to do in its
I think
opening?
at least 30.
Around 30 mil. I would agree with that. It's a big old blockbuster. I think hundreds of millions of dollars, possibly a 200 mil price tag on there.
Oof.
So it needs to make a lot of money. So 30 mil would not be the greatest debut,
No.
but it doesn't seem like it's going to be able to go much higher than that.
No.
So going to be a light kickoff to the summer movie season this time around.
Yep. Now we can go on to our main topic, which is Challengers. You and I have both seen it now. I saw it a week ago, so my impressions aren't very fresh. Ryan, when did you watch it?
I saw it Thursday.
Thursday. So a couple of days ago. Your impressions are much more recent than mine, but I do have some strong impressions. The cast is Zendaya, Mike Faced, and Josh O'Connor. It was written by Justin Kuritzkis, and it was directed by Luca Guadagnino, who's most well known for Call Me By Your Name. And
Indeed.
I'll call you by mine. Can I get some of
Heyo, heyo, heyo.
your first impressions, Ryan? What did you
You want
think?
to guess my
No, I
impressions?
said, can you
Or you want?
give
Okay,
your
okay.
first impression?
I was like, what are we doing here? But I'll gladly give you my first impressions. I had a good time watching it.
Mhm.
I thought it was very entertaining. We'll get into all the crazy dynamics here between this love triangle, but I thought it was messy and complex. I thought they did a good job of making you at least invested in and understanding each of the different characters. Like none of them felt like the true outsider or the third wheel.
Mhm.
You're able to get an understanding of each and every one of these characters in the trio. And a lot of the tennis I thought was also very energetic, very well shot. The score also lent itself to that. It elevated everything to a level that I thought had very compelling, interesting drama going on. So I enjoyed it. I was a fan. What about you, Dylan? You saw it quite a while
Mhm.
ago. You've had time to sit and ruminate with your thoughts on this film. What did you think about it?
I thoroughly did not enjoy it. I
Oh,
didn't like it that much. I didn't have a great time.
oh
I've
no.
got a lot to say about it. I wish I had liked it more because going into it, it seemed like something I could enjoy. There's a lot of natural drama and tension built into the idea of the story inherently. And I feel
Hmm.
like it had a lot to go from there, but I don't think I will talk about the flashback structure. I didn't like the use of flashbacks. I didn't like how
Mm.
they used the flashbacks. And I wasn't a big fan of the performances and also not a big fan of the characters in general. I
Okay.
didn't find them as compelling.
Fascinating. So we have a bit of a divide on challengers here.
Mhm.
So we'll start picking through our thoughts a bit deeper. So we're now entering spoiler territory. So go ahead and go watch it if you haven't already. Those who have, let's talk about it, starting with that flashback structure. Normally, I think a flashback structure can be detrimental if it halts the momentum. In this case, I don't think it ever was detrimental in that way of just like stopping us from what we want to see, which is the big climactic
Mhm.
tennis showdown. Because I thought what they flashed back to had so much of its own compelling drama a part of it,
Yeah.
and then it was always feeding back into that layer. I liked how each time we flashed back to that current, tennis match, the new Rochelle, wherever it was, which again, it's not even like the U.S. Open. It's not some major tournament. It's just like a qualifier. But each time we go back to it, the stakes are so much higher because we've learned more and more about what this means to each of these characters. So I thought ultimately it worked for that because you get to set it up in the beginning with the tennis showdown. You get some of that action, and then each time we come back to this, we're a little bit further in the game. They cut back in ways where like whoever in the flashback world was like on the up and up, they're now the ones with the upper hand in the tennis match. So I thought that was a little clever way to keep them all cohesive. And then yeah, like I said, it added the new layer of tension of what this means to each of the characters, what their what hopes are riding on this game. So for me, I thought it worked, but you weren't quite so much a
I
fan.
don't think it added anything to the story. I
Oh,
I think it actually detracted quite a bit. I would agree it didn't halt any kind of momentum in any way, which is a good start to having flashbacks added in. But I felt like the idea of we are starting at this point in time, which is the end of the story, and we are cutting back not only to the beginning of the story, but to 2 month to like a month before the end of the story, and then running both of those timelines forward simultaneously while also cutting back to the end. I feel like it added too much confusion to the story. And I think if you were going
mhm.
to do flashback, it would have been just fine cutting back to the beginning and running that forward while also cross cutting to the end instead of cutting at all into the 1 month before. I didn't think that was necessary. And I think it added a layer of confusion that didn't make any sense. And also, I think it would have been just fine to run it chronological. Like, I don't think you have to mess with a flashback unless you really think 100% it will add to the story. And I don't think it added enough to justify the flashbacks being there. I feel like it would have been much more clear and it would have been just fine to watch this thing play out, start to finish, chronological order. It's told exactly as it's supposed to be, perfectly fine. And I think part of that is we go into the beginning, they're at that New Rochelle Challengers, and I don't know any of these characters. I know nothing about them other than Tashi Duncan is dating or is married to Mike Face and they have a kid, and he's playing against Josh O'Connor. And I don't know how they're related whatsoever. I've seen the trailer. Sure, I know kind of why they're at odds and whatnot because of
Mhm.
the trailer. But in terms of watching the actual movie, I don't know why there'd be any tension. And you're saying that it adds to the fact that as the story goes on, every time we cut back, the tension increases. Well, when we start that scene, it already feels so like such a lack of tension because I don't know anything about the characters, such a lack of caring for these characters whatsoever. I don't feel any stakes at all, which I think was by design. You're not supposed to feel any stakes because you don't know anything about them. But at that point,
Mhm.
it creates a barrier for me that I have to hurdle over at some point where I'm supposed to be adding stakes into it, and that is reliant upon me finding the characters compelling and finding their story compelling. And if you can't land that, then at no point am I coming back to this moment thinking that there's being stakes added to it. And I just don't think that ever happened for me.
You didn't feel like every time we came back to it after learning more and more of their backstory, you didn't feel any more investment in how that tennis match turned out?
No, not really. Because
Oh.
ultimately, the stakes that are presented that about like 30 minutes in the movie is that Josh O'Connor needs the $500 prize money or the couple $1,000 prize money because he's poor, and Mike Face needs to win because he needs his confidence. And we are learning stakes in terms of like this is for the characters' personalities. Like their personalities are at wits here, and they both want to win because they're not only competing for Tashi's affection, they're competing against each other just for the sake of competing. And we learn those stakes and whatnot. But if I don't find those characters compelling, then those stakes aren't enough for me to find it tense in any way because it's just stakes for them personally. There's no like in world consequences. The consequences of Josh O'Connor not winning, is that he has to go and find money at a different tournament, and the consequences of Mike Face not winning is that he's not as confident going into the U.S. Open, but he's still going to the U.S. Open. If the stakes we found out had been this is a legitimate qualifying round for the U.S. Open, and one of these two guys will go on to the U.S. Open, perhaps I'd be more compelled to care because it's stakes beyond just their personal beliefs. So even if I didn't find the characters compelling, I would find the situation compelling in the sense that, oh, they're competing for this real world thing beyond their own jealousies. It's both at the same time. Perhaps it's more compelling. But in reality, if either of them lose, it's not the end of the world for either of them.
Right, but I love that aspect to it, that it is just all in their own head, that this is such a crucial time in their life, the most crucial match possible, and as you said, like, in
I would like
reality,
it.
they'll be fine afterwards, but I think the fact that so much for them personally within their own interpersonal dynamics with each other is riding on the outcome of this match. I just love that element to
I
it.
would enjoy it more if it was told chronologically in the sense that I'm learning about those personal beefs going along, and then at the end we get to this thing, and you're like, well, this is not really an important match professionally for either of them in any regard, but they have that personal stake, which is kind of funny that they're fighting against one another at this unimportant challenger hosted by a tire company in New Rochelle, New York, and
Mm,
they're just at odds with one another, and that's why it's so intense for them personally. I could find that more compelling, but to start it at that moment when I don't know anything about the characters and I don't know anything about the world, I only know this is not an important game in the world of tennis. Like I'm aware of that going into it because I know enough about tennis to be like, this is not an open of any kind. This is not a championship of any kind. It's literally a challenger. It's pros and semi pros that are attending this tournament hosted by a tire company. Like I'm aware of that going into it. So I know that there's zero stakes whatsoever entering this moment at the beginning. And then as you're going on, you're trying to add stakes by getting me interested into their personalities, into their personal conflicts. And I am not compelled by that enough to go back every 20 minutes to that New Rochelle and say, oh, I'm getting more and more stakes as we're going back. Because I'm not.
interesting. I mean, that's mainly then just a lack of investment in their personal
I would agree.
histories. I don't know that if it was chronological that would help you at
I think it would
all
help in
because
the
it seems like you
sense.
just
I think it would help in the
didn't click
sense
with it.
that if I'm following the characters chronologically throughout this story, I I could see myself being more invested in that personal connection because I'm not busy trying to figure out what the fuck is going on with the flashbacks in the first place. I'm not
Mm,
trying to piece together pieces of this like, oh, we're going to tease this kind of like, ooh, why are they so tense? Why are they fighting thing? Trying to figure that out the whole time. If I was just following the character straight out, I would be more invested in just them as characters as opposed to the world of the New Rochelle tournament that it's building to. Because it's abundantly clear within like 30 minutes that that is the final scene, is them playing that tennis tournament. We are flashing back from the end. I'm aware of it. When we get to the end, it's going to be that New Rochelle tournament. I'm trying to figure out why there are stakes here. If I didn't know that that was the ending, if I didn't know we were building to that whatsoever, I could just focus on the characters themselves and just enter their world and try and understand them on a personal level without any kind of consideration for the plot itself. And then the plot could unfold itself as time goes on, and their personal lives and the personal tension that they have would fold into the plot a little bit more nicely. And I could find myself compelled by the stakes or ironically the lack of stakes of that final tournament.
I think you just got to go along with the ride, baby. I mean, why are you trying to figure it out? You're trying to piece together stuff. Just
Because I didn't enjoy the
let it put
ride
the
in the
puzzle
first
pieces
place,
together. Well,
which is a problem.
well, you're saying that as you're trying to go on the ride, but I don't know that it being fully chronological. Because again, you're saying you were trying to put the puzzle pieces together. Why are we at this New Rochelle? Why does that matter? I thought
But then you're
for me it
also
was a
you're also
compelling way
flashing back to
to.
a month before, and you're trying to figure out, okay, why do I care about who they were a month before this tournament, while also learning about who they were 15 years before this tournament, and then going forward both of those timelines. Now, it's just too complicated for a story about three tennis players fucking each other. It's like a Christopher
Right.
Nolan style time warping thing. It's
They got
too
them
much going on.
Oppenheimer timelines going on.
Yes,
No, I
honestly,
thought this one was much more like, especially compared to Oppenheimer.
sure. I just didn't.
It's
It
like
didn't click.
far. Yeah, for me, I thought the timelines worked. I wasn't confused by them at all, and I wasn't so worried about like, oh, how does this all connect or click back together. I was content with just getting our flashbacks, getting a little bit more of the backstory here and there of like the way back then when they first met and when they were very young, and then the more recent flashbacks, as you're saying, like the month before the tournament, which gets us the more immediate stakes of like what's been transpiring in their lives, like right up to this moment, which I also think adds a new compelling layer. Like for instance, that moment where Josh O'Connor goes to Zendaya and is like, "Hey, I want you to be my coach," and then we see that Tashi, the character, is considering it. Like she's like insulting him and saying like you're a bum, like you suck, no one's gonna care. The line of like, oh, you'd have a better shot with a gun in your mouth because you're like 31 now and you're washed up basically. But then we see she takes that phone number and continues on with it. I like the fact that we've gone through like these different time jumps, flashing back and forth between these timelines, where we're a little bit far removed from when Tashi and him, Patrick, had that debate in the bedroom in the like college dorm,
Well, you would have been
where
far away from that anyway if you had told it chronologically.
you would be, but I like that when you see the Josh O'Connor thing that first time, that we get to flashback to the tournament where we're seeing them engaging in that battle, and you're seeing him like taunting uh, Mike Feist with the whole like banana peel and stuff like that, showing that like that competition, that whatever it was that he didn't have in tennis, but that he did have in interpersonal relationships, where he was like kind of thrilled by Art trying to steal Tashi from under him. We get to flash forward to the tournament where we're seeing, oh, that spirit of like competition is alive right now in the tennis. And then we get to flash to that conversation where he's like, hey, I still have that hunger. I still have that drive. I know you want that. I know Art doesn't have that anymore. Be my tennis coach. And again, like as they say all throughout this thing of like, oh, we're not talking about tennis, are we? That's like also him sort of soliciting her, like, yeah, leave him behind, find someone that does still have the drive, the hunger that you crave on the court and elsewhere. I like that we get to see those, again, those bits and pieces, those little layers of what they're talking about in the flashbacks get played out in real time with that added context in the final showdown. And then we get to go back and learn even more. And then we keep coming back to that final showdown with a bit more of that context, a bit added layers of the stakes. Again, for me, it worked chronologically. I think, again, it would still work. But the flashback structure for me was not detrimental at all. And I think it did add because you get to see, again, those like different levels of the stakes. And you get to like root sort of for one or the other with the bits and pieces of information that you do get of like who's been trying to be conniving and backstab and go behind the other person's back. And we flash forward to where we are and we get to see again that play out. And you get to like be on one person's side, and then we get another flashback that sort of illuminates this new aspect, and you sort of get pulled in the other direction until the end where again you have all these stakes, but you're really like, I don't know who to root for here. Like all these people have done some pretty nasty things to each other. But for me, yeah, I think it wasn't overly complicated to where it was confusing, but it added this nice extra component to a film that again could have been told simplistically, would have worked, I think, in the
I think it
straightforward
would have worked
chronological
better.
narrative. But for me, I think there was something additive about it, back jumping back and forth between these various
I
timelines.
disagree. I don't see any need to add complexities to filmmaking unless you find a very strong, sturdy reason as to why to do it. And I don't think the reason you're giving or the reason that anyone could give for this movie is enough to justify the level of complexity with which these flashbacks play out.
I don't know if it's that complex. They also say, I mean, they say exactly what year it is, how many years ago it
Yeah,
was.
which is just dumping information on me, which I don't care because now I'm building a timeline in my head, which I
It's
could.
a title card, and they also have their hairstyles. Just look at that.
They're
Does he have a
they're
beard? No, he's
building
young.
a timeline here that I have to keep track of when I could just watch it straightforward, and I don't think it would be that different. I think it would be slightly better, honestly. I also am trying to learn more about these characters, who they were 15 years ago, while also learning about them currently. And they're drastically different people because they go through a lot, and you're wondering how they ended up changing so significantly, how they ended up in these relationships, which I will say the flashbacks add to that sort of drama of how did they get there. I'll give you that.
Hmm.
But I'm so busy trying to do both that I can't really give my attention to one or the other because it cuts in the flashbacks so frequently.
Right. I think
Perhaps
again that's
if
part
they
of
had cut less, maybe I would be more interested, but they were cutting so frequently. And I really didn't care that
yeah.
much every time it went back to New Rochelle. I really didn't care about the tennis matches they were doing. I just kind of wanted to go to where we had left off at the beginning of the story and just move forward from there.
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, again, like I said, I think what they were probably going for there was they wanted you to ask those questions of how they get to this point. Why are they so different?
Just feels
We
like the idea of adding drama for the sake of drama to a story that is already inherently dramatic. And I don't understand why you're
Yeah,
going
but
so far to make it dramatic.
you're always looking for ways to heighten the drama. I mean, that's what you want to do.
It's like
So
a it just plays out like one of those Tumblr fiction, like fan fiction things playing out of like, here's this really high concept, high drama, super duper high drama tennis romance love triangle thing. And it had a good concept to begin with, and they just over dramatized it too much for me.
right, I don't know that the flashbacks did that,
My
but
problem is that it's taking itself so seriously for stakes that are so low that to me it should be played out like a satire, like a comedy. If there you have these characters
do
who
you think with the score, like the crazy techno synthwave club score that's playing over a conversation
Mhm.
in a sauna, that that's not them like doing a wink and a nod at how absurd this is, but how crucial and important for like the characters? Like it's so all consuming for them. But again, it's like it's a silly little challenger that they're about to go into, but they're talking like they're going into
I don't
battle.
think so.
So
I think they're taking themselves too seriously.
really
I
interesting.
didn't fucking laugh once, at least not with them trying to make me laugh. I had Carlos making me laugh sitting next to me. He
Gotcha.
leaned over like 3 times and he was like, "When is the shuttle going to show up?"
The shuttle.
Yeah, the Challenger shuttle.
Oh, um, I don't know how much it was trying to make you laugh
I don't
per
think it was
se,
trying at
like be a
all. I think it was trying
comedy.
to be serious, but I don't think it
I don't think
should have been
there's.
trying to be serious.
I think there's a difference between it being like straight serious versus it being trying to make you laugh. I think there can be a middle ground where it
I
knows.
don't think
Again,
it's
like the
knowing though.
situation for these characters is like again they're blowing it so far out of proportion,
Yeah,
but
but
it's
I think
having
it's
fun with
taking
that.
itself completely seriously. I think it's saying these characters believe that this is the end of the world for them, and you as the audience should too, for the sake of the drama. And I'm saying I know enough about what these characters are going through and like the stakes of tennis to know that what they're doing here is not the end of the world for any of them. And so
Right.
in no way do I take it seriously when you're trying to make me take it seriously. And I think they could have leaned more into the isn't this kind of stupid? Isn't this kind of stupid how much they care about this? Because obviously the personal stakes of them fighting for like Tashi Duncan's love is more important, at least to the characters, than this stupid little tennis match that they're playing. Obviously,
But that's
that's
what it's all about. They're saying literally, like, this isn't about the tennis. It's a tennis match. But even Tashi says, like, it's all about, it's a relationship. It's you, like, being as intimate as possible with another person. It's like being in love. So that's what all the tennis stuff is a metaphor for anyway. So again, the challenger itself, the qualifying thing at New Rochelle, was never meant to be like the most important part. It's what it means, what the outcome means, that if he loses, then he's not going to be confident, and then Tashi is going to feel like her chance to solidify a legacy, which since she can't play, has to all be on Art to do it, and she wants to have that career Grand Slam for him because it means a big achievement for her. And so if he's not confident, he's not going to achieve that. So that's why it was important for her. Same with again like Josh O'Connor getting his stride back. Also, he we never really find out why he got so like poor down on his luck and broke, but um, it becomes something more than just like oh getting a paycheck for this one qualifier. It becomes being able to prove that despite all the stuff that happened and Tashi ending up with Art, that he is still the better player, the one that can vie for Tashi's affection better. So all of that again, like the whole tennis thing, I feel like the game itself, again, the New Rochelle thing doesn't matter so much as like to these characters and to the way that tennis represents being in a relationship. It means the world at that moment. So I think they do enough to build up, like, again, in their heads, this is the most important match ever. But then on the outside, again, it is kind of silly and they have fun with that. I mean, the POV shots
dude,
they
terrible,
got going on there,
terrible.
Well, which one? Because the one where it's like the video game, like the hardcore Henry,
Yeah,
like
the
you
people
have their hands
POV
from
bad. The tennis ball POV
bad.
not so bad.
No, it rips. You know it. It was great with that
I
score
wouldn't say
bumping over it. They're
rips.
whacking back and forth.
I would
That
say
was
not
fun.
so bad.
The POV shots, like the Breaking Bad thing where Jesse's trying to look for the ricin
Oh,
and it's like
like
shooting
the
up
up from the
through the
glass.
ground.
That's not
Yeah,
terrible. Yeah, I was fine with that.
that was awesome. It was great. So they're having fun with it. Like again, that whole all those POV shots, again, the score going crazy with it. They know it's like, okay, this is silly and fun and a spectacle to the outsider who's seeing again these people put like their whole worlds into this match. But on the personal side, you do understand why they feel that way. And I guess, it's up to the audience whether or not you actually care about that. But for me, I did get
Let me
invested.
ask you, what made you care about these characters? Because nothing made me care about the characters because it just felt like they didn't actually care about each other. It just
Right.
felt like competition for the sake of competition. And I feel like if they're going to have that kind of competition against each other, there should be some amount of like, I think I actually kind of like Tashi, but I don't think they. It just didn't feel like they actually liked Tashi, and it definitely didn't feel like Tashi liked them. And then at some point, they definitely just didn't like each other anymore.
No, they did not.
So,
They
what made you
they
care about the
broke
characters at
apart
all? Because
there.
they just do shitty things to each other, even though it doesn't seem like they care about each other one bit.
Right. I don't care so much as like would I want to hang out with these people? No. But what I appreciate about them is that they are very much flawed and they do have these selfish tendencies that manifest themselves of like again trying to backstab each other or steal one's girl out from the other, things like that. So
Yeah, but
that sort of
why?
raw why?
Why?
Why
Is it
what?
just for the sake of stealing the girl? Because it just doesn't seem like he cared about her at all. Like he does the sim thing where he's like, Patrick doesn't love you, and she's like, who said I needed to be loved? Which I think is stupid.
Are you asking why he wanted to be with Tashi? I mean, they established that pretty well, I think, of like them both watching her play that tennis tournament. Again, the whole thing of like, oh, tennis is a stand in for all these other things, for romance and relationship, sex, all of that. They're enamored with her watching that. And then we see the whole party as well. They have a very extended scene of like Zendaya just dancing. She gets her like Guadagnino dancing moment.
Which was bad.
Um, it went on a little too long. I will
Cut
say
back to
that.
her like
I was
four
like, I,
times for no
I was like,
reason.
I also like Zendaya's great, gorgeous, amazing. They really
Not good at
understand the
dancing.
power of her look. She is good at dancing. I mean, she's
No,
a
not
dancer.
not in
But
that
in this
scene.
one, they had her doing like that same sort of move back and forth. And I'm like, let's
Let's cut. Let's
let's
go
move on
somewhere else.
here.
Yeah.
Um, but no, she's a great dancer. By the way,
I mean, no, I know. I
she was
mean,
literally on Shake It Up,
I meant in
the
this movie,
dance
she is not
Disney
good at
Channel
dancing.
show.
She Zendaya herself is very good at dancing, but in this
The
movie,
character
the character
Tashi,
Tashi is not good at dancing.
yeah. So that was a choice to have for sure. But anyway, it's clearly set up that they are enamored with her. And again, you, well, um, we can see that they shouldn't be doing this, but for whatever reason, they both are that competitive that they want to do whatever they can to end up with this prize. So again, seeing her as a prize, seeing her like that, not great, obviously. Trying to backstab your own friend to like take his girl and plant these things
Yeah,
here,
so why would
not
I
great.
care who wins? And then it's like, then you could
You,
say, oh, you want Tashi to win because she is the quote unquote prize. It would be great if Tashi beat out both the boys. But then it's like, Tashi doesn't give a fuck about either of them either and is kind of using them to her own advantage. So she's pretty shitty too. Why the fuck would I care about
yeah,
her?
not not great. Again, they come off not as like sugar coated at all. They have
But
these
there has
flaws.
to be some kind of moments where you think maybe they actually do care about each other a little bit as people, as opposed to just pawns in whatever games that each of them are playing. But they
Well, I
don't.
think they
I
do.
don't
I
have those
think, I
moments.
mean,
I
no, I
don't think
think
so
it
at
does. You
all.
see in the early friendship when they're talking about like, oh, throwing the game on behalf of the mother, you see like the friendly banter there. I think
Their
that
two connection,
works.
the two boys, is the only one that I believe, and it was in the beginning. And then after that, they have their own little like fight between each other, and then from that point onward, they don't give a shit about each other naturally, which is the only thing that I find believable about or compelling about these characters is the two boys who were friends and then became not friends because of Tashi. It's the
Right.
only part of
And
it that I think is
then
compelling. Everything else is like, oh, we're all just shitty people doing shitty things to each other, and we don't care about each other.
I
Isn't
think you
that great?
see again in elements
Let's
that
just
there
all fuck each
are
other. Aren't we all hot? Why do I care?
the the connection between Tashi and Patrick, and then Tashi and
There is no
Art. I
connection.
think you do see those
There
moments.
is no connection.
Yeah, I think there is.
No,
I think you
Tashi
do
wants
see that stuff.
Patrick to be more successful than what he is, and he's just kind of phoning it in and doing what he's doing, and he doesn't want advice, and she's trying to give him advice because she wants everything around her to be the best, and she doesn't want to date a guy who's not the best, and he doesn't care because he's doing good enough. And so they just break up as a result of that because Tashi doesn't give a shit about Patrick, and Patrick really doesn't give a shit about Tashi either. And then Art shows up like a fucking simp, and then his whole relationship with Tashi is, I idolize you and will do anything you want me to do, but I don't actually care about you, the individual. I care about you, the idea. And Tashi doesn't give a shit about Art. She just likes that she has a lapdog who will do whatever he wants, which Patrick points out rather on the nose, which is kind of bad dialogue if you ask me, because I sussed that out immediately. I didn't need anybody to fucking tell me, and then Patrick just says it because he's the edgy guy who has to say everything he that you're supposed to be feeling, which is just bad writing. And then, so why do I care about Tashi and Art? I don't. Why do I care about Tashi and Patrick? I don't. The only thing I kind of find compelling is Art and Patrick, and by the time we get them back together, you're an hour into the movie.
Well, you could say that's what the whole finale hinges on, and that whole like last moment, which I want to talk about how you felt about
Them just
that whole
slamming into each
embrace.
other, finding out that the
Yeah.
real challenge is just being gay.
I don't know that that was quite exactly what that meant, but yeah, them being finally happy again with the game itself, getting that competitive spirit, and then enjoying each other's company yet again. And then Tashi as well, also being like thrilled by that, since she all this time, I mean, she was just trying to chase a good tennis match. Going back to the hotel scene.
Yeah, man. I can't believe we spent 15 years hating each other and doing all these horrible, shitty things together. I can't believe we fucking forgot how much we love tennis. This shit's the fucking best. Forget all this past between us. Let's just fucking hit some balls, man. This shit's the fucking best. It's bad. It's bad, Ryan.
No,
It's not good.
no, I think it is good. I think
Not
as
good.
well the complexity too of which I mean,
It's
yeah,
a
I
faux
guess for
complexity.
some
It's
people
not
works, some people
real.
doesn't.
It's
It's
pretending
not
to be
real
complexity, but everything
Fugazi.
is really on the fucking surface. There's nothing deeper to these characters. Everything that they feel is on the fucking surface. And there's nothing deeper to them. There is no oh, Tashi seems like the super competitive person who is really trying to push these two people to be as good as they possibly can, but deep down she really cares about one of them and is just trying to do what's best for them regardless of the competition. There's no depth like that. She just wants to fucking win. She wants someone to be the fucking winner. Art doesn't have any kind of complexity in the sense that he is trying to like Tashi as a real person as opposed to just the idolized version of her. He just likes the idolized version of her. And then eventually gets fed up with it because she isn't who he actually thinks she is. She is just using him as a pawn. She's not this great idol. She's kind of a shitty person too. And
Right.
Patrick
I don't think
Patrick has
I
no
don't know,
depth
that's
because
a great read.
he's the oh, I'm the edgy character who's going to be exactly who I say I am. I don't lie about being a bad guy. I'm honest about being a bad guy. Like, you couldn't write a more Reddity, Tumblr fucking fanfic shit thing than this.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I don't know what you're reading on Reddit or Tumblr or fanfic sites, but I think with Tashi, it's I think saying that again, she's only using him as a lapdog. Again, I don't know that I see
She
that,
doesn't care about
or
him.
that he's like, "Oh, you weren't the thing that I idolized." I think clearly they do care about each other.
Nope,
I mean, again, they ultimately got married and had a kid
doesn't
together,
matter. She doesn't
and
care
you're
about him.
seeing that he is trying to make this plea, which he ultimately does. Like he can quote unquote stand up and is like, "Hey, I am not going to continue with anything past the open, whether we win or lose. Like that's where I'm drawing the line because I'm tired. This isn't that."
Yeah, and then
And then
she fucks
she,
Josh O'Connor to get him to lose the match so that he will go to the U.S. Open because she just wants him to win.
which is a terrible choice, but
Yeah, because all she cares
You're
about is
seeing
him
there,
winning.
but why does she care about him winning?
Because she doesn't give a shit about him. She just wants a winner. She wants to leave a legacy, like you said.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying.
There's no
There's
complexity in
more
that.
to it than just like,
No, there isn't.
oh, I want him to win. So you're seeing like how much of it is her truly wanting him to win, how much of it is her trying to live vicariously through him, how much of it is her trying to just orchestrate a great tennis match. Because again, when she's like getting Josh O'Connor to participate as well, she wanted him to throw it. But then in the end, when she's getting invested in this crazy like back and forth exchange that they got going on in the tiebreak, she's getting enthralled in a level that she wasn't expecting before. And again, as part of that, the fear of it's all going to blow up. She's going to lose her family. He's going to lose, and so he's not going to go to U.S. Open. Or is it the satisfaction that, like, despite all these terrible, awful things, she's getting to see this connection between people on the tennis court, which is like the most intimate, most powerful connection that there can be. And that's what she's chasing all this time. Like, that's the only way that she can maybe experience the love, the connection that she's been craving.
No, dude.
These are
She
the
just
questions
wants
that
to
are out
live
there.
vicariously. She just wants a winner.
That's what you're saying, but I'm saying there's more to it. I
I
think
don't think
there's
that's
those
true. I
multiple
don't think they're
layers. I think
layering
multiple
that in
things
at
can be
all.
true.
I don't think they're layering it in at all.
Why do you think she screams, come on, at the end? Is that out of anger? Is it out of satisfaction? Is it out of shock? Is it out of homophobia? what is she what is she saying?
Come on! Get off of him! No, I think you're right in the sense that part of it is that she wants to just see a good match of tennis. But so much of it is because we forget that completely from the last time she did that was getting them to kiss each other and then saying, I will give my number to the one who wins. I want to see some good fucking tennis. That was the
Mhm.
last time she did that. Cut to 2 hours later in the movie, an hour and a half later in the movie. We get to the end and we have that moment where it becomes clear that she's not thinking much about the stakes of their romantic relationship. She cares about the match itself and wants to see a good game of tennis. That's an hour and a half of pure drama in between those two moments. It's very easy to just forget that she cares about watching good fucking tennis.
But I think
Because
the thesis, though,
so much of it that you're watching is just Tashi manipulating people because she wants a winner. She doesn't care who it is. She wants a winner.
right. I think the thesis, though, that she says way earlier on of, again, like what tennis represents to her and why she loves it so much, which was why she did that whole scream of, come on. I think that will stick a little bit more than when she is leaving them. It's like, oh, whoever wins gets my number. I just want to see a good match of tennis. I think it was like the combination of those two. I think is what makes that moment stick in the end. Plus, I think again, there's the complexity of like, there's clearly some sort of attraction beyond just like, oh, I want this guy
It doesn't feel like it.
to win the tennis
It
game.
doesn't feel like it.
Well, why would she sleep with Josh O'Connor in that moment when she could have again made like some sort of deal like, oh, afterwards we'll do this, or hey, you want me to be your coach, I'll be your coach if you throw the game. But yeah, she like he's like, oh, you came here to be with me, and she's like, no, you're out of your mind. And then she's like, but if it'll get you to throw the tennis match or something, like she did not need to throw that on the table, that did not need to be a part of the negotiation, but she kept it in there and then got out of the car and like came back and did that. And I don't think again she did not need to do that just to have the throw the game moment.
The difference between Art and Pat is that Pat is the kind of guy who has all the natural talent, but none of the desire to put in the work to raise that natural talent to greatness. Whereas Art is the
Yes.
guy who has the dedication and the desire to be as good as possible, but he doesn't necessarily have the raw natural talent that would put him over the edge to make him great. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as Tashi wishes, there's nothing she could do to push Art to get to the point of being a great tennis player beyond what he's already done because he just doesn't have that raw natural talent that Josh or that Patrick has. But if she's
Yeah.
able to push Patrick to be great, she can have a winner. So she sees Patrick as someone who could most likely be the winner. That's what she finds attractive about him.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That is the only thing that this movie is leading me to believe that she finds attractive about these characters is their level of willingness to win.
Right. You say that, which I can sort of agree with. But again, she wasn't saying, "Oh, I'll be your coach." Like she was saying, "Throw the game so that he can win, so that he can continue to the U.S. Open." If it was just about like who was going to be the better winner, she would have left Art and been like, "Okay, this guy's not going to cut it. I'll go with Patrick. He's got if they both have like 1 year left, this guy's got the better chance of getting
But
that
she's married to
big
Art. That
win
would
at the
blow up her
end."
whole marriage.
Yeah, and yet she slept with that dude anyway.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. I agree.
Because
She
I don't think it had anything to do with Art or trying to get him to throw the match. She just found him attractive because she knew he was a winner.
well,
That
that's what I'm
Art was
saying.
never going
So
to be a
that can
winner, but
be,
Patrick could have been, and she finds that attractive about him and just fucks him because of it.
but I think there's more to it as well. Because in
No,
Atlanta, they say that flashback about Atlanta, where Tashi and him at least kiss, and potentially more. We see Art like show up, see them at the table, and then they disappear. So we don't know exactly what happened there. But that too, at that point, like she had been proposed, he's on the up and up, Art is, but yet she was still allured by Patrick when he came around. So I don't think that was strictly just, oh, which one of these potential winners is more likely to win or is more frequently winning at this point. There's something else there. So that's why I think there's more than just like, okay, I want to see who's going to be the best at tennis as the deciding factor in who she's in love with, or at least who she's trying to sleep with. So I think there's more there. I think it's not as a surface level as you are interpreting it to be.
I think it's designed to seem service level. I don't think they're trying to make it seem too complex. They're not putting in the work to add in complexities here, in my opinion. Because they just say
Uh,
exactly how they fucking feel the whole goddamn movie. The dialogue is so fucking bad.
I mean, you were having difficulties with that flashback structure, keeping track of like when was what and what was
I
going
wasn't having
on, when
trouble
and
with it.
where.
I'm saying I could see how somebody could very easily, in the sense that
Mm.
Lillian, who I was with, was having trouble keeping track of where everything was. I think the ultimate thing I was trying to get across is that I think simultaneously they are handling too much, like too many character points, and doing it too poorly by making everything so painfully obvious that it feels dumbed down. And at the same time, adding way too much complicated story structure when it could have just been straightforward. And at the same time, not making me care about these characters enough and just having them fuck each other for the sake of pure like consumer entertainment without any. I guess there's like the bare minimum of need for those sex scenes to be in it.
So it's too simple, too complex, too much of the erotic drama part of it.
It's just not right. It needs to be just right, and it's not just right. It's trying too much and not getting away with it enough.
I don't even know what that means.
The only thing I liked about it was the score.
The score was bumping. There's a few parts where like you couldn't even hear exactly what was going on in the dialogue, but
Which I think is really funny.
they hit them. I mean, the Nolan comparisons continue in more ways than one, I guess. Um, I don't know. I thought number one for like that trailer, I thought it was going to be way more like risque and going crazy with the sex scenes. Again, there's only those two scenes. They both do. The one in like the dorm room is crazy because that was like a whole one take, and that was a long scene that
I
goes from them like
guess.
on the bed and then to them like putting their clothes on and finishing up that argument,
Yeah, that scene was fine. Yeah,
and then
I
the
had no
hotel
complaints.
scene as well. They linger on that definitely for a bit, but again, they could have been way further, and there could have been way more scenes as well that were like that. So I thought they had just the right amount to, I guess, deliver on what they were pitching in that trailer, but not going so over the top or not relying on that as like the sole ingredient to it. Certainly, that's a part of it, the whole erotic sexiness part, but that wasn't
It
the
just
only or
it
central
requires me
element.
to care about the characters way more than I did for me to actually enjoy the movie, and I just didn't care about the characters.
Right. I cared a lot about the messiness that was going on there. I thought it had the compelling drama. And again, they're flawed in many ways. A lot of them make the bad decisions. By the end of it, again, they've all like done their sins. They've all hurt each other in various ways. But I was still invested in what the outcome was going to
But
be and like how it was all going to blow up in
I
their
didn't feel
faces.
a lot of like humanity in it. Like I feel like Succession, where those characters are 3 million times more despicable than these characters, do significantly worse things. I felt like there was more humanity in those characters than these characters. I feel like some kind of like shred of actual humanity occurred in those Succession characters where they would do these terrible things and not give a shit for so much of the show, and then you would get like a moment where you understand why they are the way that they are, or why they choose to do the things that they do, and you feel bad for them. I didn't feel bad for any of these
You
characters. I
didn't
don't give
feel
a
bad
fuck.
for Tashi when she was sitting by the tree after trying to practice after her injury, and she's like, "I can't do it anymore. I'm not able
No,
to
I really didn't give a fuck.
participate in the sport that I love," and she's all upset. That was a moment of humanity. That was
Yeah,
them trying
I
to
give it to you.
show her in a
Yeah,
vulnerable moment.
yeah,
Again,
but I
if
didn't
it
fucking
didn't click
care.
with you, that's fine. But I mean, these moments were in there for you to latch onto. Again, if you
If
don't,
if
that
it
is what
didn't
it is.
work, then that's a problem of the movie. If that moment of humanity didn't feel like a real moment of humanity, then I don't
To
care.
you,
Because
then
ultimately,
you don't care. Yeah.
she feels no guilt for any of the choices she makes regarding Patrick and Art. The closest you can get is when she comes home after fucking Josh O'Connor and like sees Art in the bed with her daughter. Is the
Hmm.
closest you can get to a moment like that. Even that, I don't think she really cared that fucking much.
You got
She just
a
didn't give a
high opinion
fuck.
of her.
She did not care. Which I mean is fine if you're gonna have a character like that. But I feel no humanity in her. So why would I care?
I mean, that's just how the movie came off for you. Unfortunately, the writing and performances didn't lend it enough humanity
Yep.
for you to care.
Yep.
But for others, there was enough substance there, enough in the writing or the performances that it was able to, at the least, again, we're not trying to like celebrate or adore these characters, but care enough about what is going on between them, or at least interested in the outcome. So again, stuff like this is just a crazy reference, but the Kendrick and Drake stuff going on right now. I don't have a dog in that fight. As you know, I'm not a rap fan, but I'm here for the drama. I think it's hilarious. I love it. So it's stuff like that of can these characters that again, I'm not trying to like spend my day with them or anything, but do
But
I
if
care
that's
enough
the
about
case, if
what's
all I care
unfolding?
about is the drama, then don't try to make the humanity moments. Don't try to make me care about the characters. Don't like try to put in that effort. Just make it like hammy and ridiculous. And I just don't think I think they took themselves too seriously. I really believe that. And you could make the argument that the music was wild and the shots were wild and it's a crazy stakes tennis thing for a not so crazy stakes match. I just don't think it just didn't come off to me as playing it up for the sake of cartoonishness for that ironic reason. It just felt like they were trying to add tension to a scene that didn't need it in that regard.
So you wanted full hamminess, and that would have made you more invested in the drama, just because it'd be all goofy. Is what you're saying?
I wanted the actors to take it 100% seriously, which they did. I wanted, if they had kept those same performances, that'd be fine. I wanted the filmmakers to step apart from those characters and be balls to the wall with it in the same way that like Succession does that, where these characters are 100% sincere, 100% terrible all of the time, but the people behind the camera who are controlling the story are fully aware of that and are playing it up as much as they can to make them seem ridiculous as a result. And I don't think they're trying to make Zendaya or Josh O'Connor or Mike Face seem ridiculous.
Not to the same way that Succession is. No, I don't believe so. But I think
Exactly.
there is enough
They're
tongue.
trying to make like a serious drama with these characters with a little bit of jokiness to it. And I don't think that sticks the landing. I feel like it needed to be much taken much less seriously in the hands of the filmmakers. But I think it needed to stay as serious with the performances because that is the juxtaposition that I needed to see, where
Mhm.
it is this level of seriousness to these people, these characters that we're watching, But we all know, and the filmmakers all know, that none of this fucking matters in the grand scheme of things. None of these things matter. And we just know that these people are shitty people doing shitty things for selfish reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's all it is. No matter what justification they give in the name of the game, in the name of love, it's all fucking bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
They don't do that.
They take bites out of the same churro and chew like there's never been chewing done before on film. I think they very much were tongue-in-cheek and aware enough
Not
to,
enough.
and again, that whole final sequence as well. Sweat dripping down onto the camera as he's gearing up for like the serve after 35
It feels like it's trying to
seconds.
be serious. It feels like it's trying to be like, oh, maybe at first you thought this was a jokey thing, but this is serious. This is everything. This match is everything.
Can't
at the
say
end of the
that.
day-
And then he goes into the bouncing back and forth with the
But at
ball
the end of the day, I'm like,
and the POVs.
this is not everything. This matters fucking nothing to me.
The shots of everyone looking left and right, following the tennis ball, and then it's just Zendaya in the middle, just like looking straight forward. I think it knew enough. It was self-aware enough. It was jokey enough.
I don't agree.
But hey, that is filmmaking. I mean, it's good that we had a disagreement like this. We were usually so on the same page about stuff.
Yeah, it's rare.
So it's good that a film like this comes along, which shows that, hey,
It's so much harder to be
filmmaking
the negative one.
is up to the audience. I mean, you seem to thrive.
I mean,
in that, apparently.
I really didn't like it, but I really don't like being the negative one. I love loving a movie that other people don't and trying to defend it. I think it's a more fun position to take. I've never been a fan of taking down a movie. I've never been a fan of disliking a movie, but I mean, there's just very little that I enjoyed about this film other than the music, and then some of the bonkersness of the shots were kind of funny. But other than that, I thought it was over dramatic. I think it was just odd how it was simultaneously over dramatic and not fully aware that it was being over dramatic, to the sense that it is taking itself too seriously. If you're gonna be over dramatic, go balls to the walls with it and be aware that you're being over dramatic. I don't think they were doing it. I think they were just taking it too seriously. I really stand by that.
Yeah, I disagree. But
All right.
That's filmmaking for you, and that's being an audience. You get to interpret it whichever way it connects with you. I thought it was fun, compelling, had a lot of that messy drama in there. The score was great. We are unanimous on that, I guess.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it's
a lot of
Reznor
tennis
and
stuff
Atticus
was fun.
Ross. It's going to be great.
Yeah, they are fantastic. So yeah, overall, I was very entertained watching the film.
Mm-hmm. How many career Grand Slams out of 5 are you going to rate this movie?
I'm giving it a full 4 Grand Slams out of 5 because
crazy.
there's 4 Grand Slam things. That's what's also funny about this, of like knowing the tennis and whatnot. There's like no American tennis stars are that good of where art was. So already, like, Tashi should have been satisfied of the insane career that he's had so far without even that Grand Slam. Because yeah, it's just with men's tennis specifically.
Yeah,
I should say women's tennis. We
Serena
rule.
Williams.
Americans
Serena
are great, but
Venus Williams.
yes, and then Coco Gauff now taking over the mantle. But as far as men's tennis, it has never worked. It was also funny too because
McEnroe's pretty good.
They're who?
McEnroe. That's how you say it.
Yeah, there's a few like Ben Shelton who is on the come up. But it's also funny that they're like, I'm 31, like this is my last year, I can't do this anymore. And like the current best tennis player in the GOAT is like 37, 36 or 7.
Yeah.
Djokovic. So
I mean, it takes a toll on you. Not everybody can make it that far.
It definitely does, but that's just, it was hilarious of them being like, man, it's embarrassing to do this when you're pushing 40. And it's like, dude, our number 1 tennis player in the world right now is pushing 40. Yeah. But yeah, how many career Grand Slams out of 5 for you?
I'm giving it 2.5.
Dang.
Yeah.
Quite a divide there. But a compelling film is fun to talk about.
I did not have fun talking about it. And I did not have fun watching it. I was kind of bored. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I had fun talking about it and watching it. So this was a win for me.
I suppose so. Anyway, that's all the time we have. If you'd like to give your thoughts on the show, you can email us at theboxofficeshowpod@gmail.com.
Our main title theme for the show is Sundown by Joseph McDade.
If you like the show, please give us 5 stars on whatever podcast app you're listening to, and be sure to tune in next week. Have a great week.